welcome to this episode of our book chat. And we have with us a special guest today, Dr. Candice Vance Anderson. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Anderson before we jump into it. Dr. Anderson is the wife to Adrian Anderson. She is a mom of four and she is a fellow educator, which includes certain roles such as a college professor. She has been an educational consultant, special educational director, teacher, guidance counselor, assistant principal, interim principal, and even technical assistance provider for the Mississippi Department of Education. When I tell you Dr. Anderson, it's all things education. Dr. Anderson, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Dr. Anderson is tired. You listed all that stuff. Like that. Dr. Anderson nerves so bad, but I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, Dr. Anderson has debuted her first book entitled Where the Wild Things Learn. And this book weaves wisdom and wit, shining a spotlight on the generational quirks, creative strategies, and delightful chaos that come with educating the brilliantly bold and wonderfully disruptive. So, when I tell you that this book has blessed me, so far, and I have started actually implementing the strategies. But before we get into the book, we want to start with our rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Okay, I think.
Okay, so let's get started.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. Right now, coffee.
Right, right.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Early bird or night owl?
That's tough. Some of my best thinking happens at about 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm gonna say early bird.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so pen and notebook or digital all the way?
Oh, pen and notebook.
Yeah.
I'm saying my age, but I'm old school and I still like to annotate. I annotate everything. Yes. Pen and notebook.
Okay, so what is one word that describes
I
your
think
book?
that I'm gonna say non-compliant. Non-conforming.
Non-compliant.
Non-conforming. It is
Not
non-conforming. It's non. Yes. Yes. Non-conforming. I'm gonna say that.
love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. So what is your go-to self-care treat?
Anything that allows me to laugh, I won't.
Uh-huh.
I really enjoy the feeling. I'm almost addicted to laughter and anything that allows me to just be able to unplug. And so, literally, it could be reading. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's just going outside of my front door and just kind of standing there and looking outside and seeing some
Yeah.
kids down there doing something crazy or looking at my neighbors across the street. It's just anything that kind of allows me to unplug and take life not so seriously just for a minute.
Yes.
Just for a minute. Just
Yes.
a piece. Yeah.
Okay. So Zoom session or in-person magic?
Oh my goodness. For me, I got to be in person if I'm delivering it.
Okay, yes.
And I think I say that as a college professor who's been forced to kind of deliver through Zoom and be all that I am, which is animated. It's difficult to do that. So I find myself way more tired after class because you got to really give it when it's,
Yeah.
via
Yeah.
Zoom. So
Via
if I'm
Zoom.
giving a PD, I got to be in person, but I can receive it via Zoom,
Via Zoom.
or as
Okay.
long as my ADHD will allow it. Yeah.
Since you mentioned college professor, qualitative or quantitative?
Oh, quasi
Ozzy?
for me. I don't think that you're always able to explain what you need to explain in data if you don't use both methods.
Both.
So,
Yeah.
but I'm definitely quasi, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so grading papers or folding laundry?
Oh, oh, grading papers, baby. I got those in the dryer right now. About it. I'm gonna put them. I'm gonna turn them on a little bit to make them hot. They're easier to fold, and it tricks me into. But I hate folding clothes. I hate folding clothes. I feel
Okay.
like if I was forced to go to hell, that's what they make me do down there.
Oh, close.
Fold clothes. Yes.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so what does it mean to be wild?
Mm. It takes courage to stand alone.
It
It
does.
takes a lot of courage to see the way things have always been done, but to know on the inside that you yearn to do something differently, not because you want to cause a stir or a problem, but because you know that stepping out is where the magic is. It's
Hmm.
in the ability to go against the grain sometimes. It's in the ability to be courageous enough to say, wait, what if we do it like this? Or maybe we should try this. Or sometimes when I hear this word, I think this, and it spins everything. And one thing that I focus on a lot, I know we'll get into it in a minute, is being a pattern disruptor, because
Yeah.
patterns are safe. But
Yeah.
sometimes, you got to be able to step away from the pattern, to disrupt the pattern, to break the pattern, so that you can go a little bit further, than where you need to go.
Right, right. So, what inspired you to write Where the Wild Things Learn?
In education, whether anybody tells you or not, there's a
Hmm.
process, there are steps. It used to be where you had to at least teach for a period of time before anybody would respect you enough to say you could be an administrator.
Hmm.
Now, 3 to 5 years, maybe. And we've got people put in positions of leadership who not done the self work yet. This book allowed an opportunity to show that no longer can you wait for somebody to reach a certain capacity before you allow them to shine. Our
Yeah.
students are ready to tell you exactly who they are right now. Our teachers are ready to tell you right now, I'm ready to leave right now. And for those of us who are locked into these patterns, these people are coming to disrupt, and we're not prepared for it. So if you
Right.
prepare for a pattern disruptor, you can be proactive and you can say, disruption is not always bad. Let me prepare myself to open up, to create a team of people who are thinking fresh and wild and still love to be able to learn. We've taken away that love for learning because we've tried to put them into a standard way of thinking, and it's just not fair. So that's what I was attempting to do with that book.
That's so true. That's so true. I can remember a teacher coming in under me who was just starting teaching and she had fresh ideas and the ideas were good. So yeah, you don't have to be that veteran teacher anymore to gain respect.
Yeah.
You got to get results.
Exactly. And what happens is the veteran teacher sees the novice teacher who is full of energy and ready to make an impact day one as troublesome, coming in to create a problem, not respecting authority. And that's just not the correct translation. Those translations come when you're thinking out of a perception that's really just not healthy to think out of. And I mean, it happens to all of us. We've all been stuck in patterns and felt like I'd rather stay here because it's safe. I can predict what's coming. But our students don't believe that. And so here
Right.
we are trying to make them sit still and be quiet and have one hand up to their mouths in the hall and walk, the way everybody else does. And stuff is boiling on the inside and they are just, I mean,
Tails and bubbles. I
oh
think that's
my
what it's
goodness,
called.
it's like a tea kettle. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, all it takes is one thing and they snap, and all of a sudden, we have labeled this student unruly and disruptive. But that's not what it is. We have to allow those opportunities for that, let that pressure out. Everybody needs opportunities to let the pressure out.
Right.
It really is an opportunity to say we all release pressure differently.
Yeah.
And all of those ways that we release pressure differently can be put all into this wild concept. We all fit in there and we all possess the behaviors that somebody would label defiant. We all have those because we're set in our ways, some of us. And it's just not fair to label someone who decides to go a different route as trouble.
Mhm.
That's not fair.
Right, right. So in looking at your expansive roles in the education. How did you come about writing the book as far as like it seems like there wasn't like extra research you had to do. Like
Yeah.
because you have been in so many different roles, it just came from experience. Is that correct?
Definitely. So, and I'm always the first to say, because I didn't go into education the traditional route. When I went to school, I went to major in biology. I had been so well spoken, and my grades had been satisfactory all this time. And so people were encouraging me to go into the medical profession. I had decided by then that I was going to do physical therapy. Um,
Okay.
Nothing that had to do education, because no one encouraged me to do that, even though I come from a family of educators, because the money just wasn't there. And so I
Right.
never really considered that. I really just kind of wanted to be the rich auntie that lives somewhere else with no kids, to send my nieces and nephews money and whatever they wanted. They can come over my house, that's fine. But whatever they wanted, TT was gonna get it. Um,
Right.
and then things changed, and I ended up going into education after working for an organization called Vocational Rehab.
Okay.
When I went to work for Voc Rehab, I was responsible for a program that took students that were 17 to 21 and prepared them for the workforce. It was supposed to. It was supposed to encourage them to understand that you don't have to receive that check for the rest of your life. You can be independent. You can
Mhm.
live on your own. You just got to find ways to be able to empower yourself to get where you need to go. Understanding that you can use the library for resources other than just internet, and just kind of teaching them. And when I started working with them, even at my young age, because I was like 22, I said that
Mhm.
they're not ready. Whatever it was they were supposed to receive in school, they just were not ready to do. And it immediately made me say, I'm going to go to the school. I
Yeah.
find these things that need to be fixed, and instead of me trying to fix others, I fix myself so that I can deliver what needs to be done. And so I did the same thing in the school when I was working with students with these exceptionalities of all different kinds.
Mhm.
And I realized that they still were not ready to go to college because we weren't speaking the talk that needed to be spoken in their language for them to prepare. And so
Yeah.
then after I got through with K-12, I went to higher ed, and I kept going, and I still feel the need, because I don't feel that I can be an expert in my content area if I don't hit all those different places. And so I'm
Yes.
grateful to have had those different capacities, because generally, again, people who are used to being stuck in a pattern feel that you got to do things for 25 years before you can become an expert. That's just not the truth. As long as
Right.
you study and you're digging for it and you're trying to learn, you're growing and you're surpassing. And our kids are surpassing us. And I'm trying to keep up. I'm trying.
Right. Right, right, right.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first looked at the title, Where the Wild Things Learn,
Yeah.
I immediately went to students.
Yeah.
But then once I got into the book, I learned that the wild things are not just students. It's educators, it's the principals,
Yes.
the teachers, hey, it's the parents.
Parents. Yes.
Because we all like nobody is exempt from the wow factor.
Mm-mm.
So
Mm-mm.
is that where you were going with the book?
It is. And honestly, once you I really knew that the book was going to be one of those things that you would read one time under one perception, come back and read it again under another perception. So, someone who is an educator now may read it as an educator to try to do what they need to do in the classroom, but may come back realizing, wait a minute, I got a child like this. Or come
Hmm.
back and realize, wait a minute, that's my personality. And I've had to water down and conform and create this person, this version of myself. I had to do the same thing that was easy to
Yeah.
swallow until I got to a position where I was strong enough and flexible enough to speak it. And that's where I feel like I am now. And sometimes I feel like I'm speaking for this group who right now is in the classroom and can't, or this
Yes.
parents who want desperately to understand what it is to parent a child that falls onto into these categories, who may have an IEP, who constantly has to meet every day or go pick that kid up because of behavior, because the teachers or because the district itself doesn't quite understand that we all have these exceptionalities, and we need to make this more than just, accommodations or understandings for people who don't have IEPs. It's crazy
Yeah.
folks everywhere, right?
Right.
I mean, you get to a certain age where you think back when we were in school and you go, we didn't have all these amenities, but I know we had classmates that failed in certain categories that I know didn't receive everything they should have received because our districts didn't know how to support them. They just
Right.
don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it.
Got it.
Um,
So, with all that you have going on, how did
yeah.
you find time to write this book?
The book wrote itself.
Okay.
Based on the prior question that you were saying, it really was a culmination of all I had done. I
Yeah.
still have notes in different places. I like to chronicle things anyway, so I was able to pull from those things. And the book
Oh,
for me is
good.
just the right length for an adequate 8 hour PD. That is a strong 8 hour PD. It can be
Yes.
broken up into 2 days. I think that districts can really make the best out of the content that's in there and then find ways to marry in academics. You can't deal with academics until you take care of behavior first, anyway. And so I think that it's a wonderful opportunity, and like again, just the right length where you
Mhm.
can really get in and talk about the stuff that's there and complete the book and be able to pass it on to somebody else who needs it. It's
Yes.
not too lengthy. It's not too heavy academically. I don't think I hope that it's very user friendly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I believe it is. What did you learn about yourself as a writer?
Oh,
I know because writing, you've done, you have your doctorate, so you've done the academic writing, but
mhm.
writing for the book, what did you learn about yourself?
Writing the book made me appreciate myself a little bit more, honestly. People like us, because you've got the same type of personality, who are so used to working and delivering and getting it right too.
Yeah.
Finding your niche and kind of being good at it. It's easy to get caught up in it and not give yourself credit. When I
Yeah.
went back to actually read that book, I saw how much I had grown. I saw
Oh,
how much I had begun to, instead of looking at others and wondering why they didn't accept me, I realized that I had grown to simply accept myself. And then I didn't care about what anybody else
yeah.
had an issue with. And it's not an unhealthy, I don't care,
Yeah.
the healthy amount of appreciation for myself that you want to put in your children so they're not affected by peer pressure. It's
Yes.
that, acceptance that says, I see what you're doing. It does look cool, but
Mhm.
that ain't for me. I can
Yeah.
step away. And I realized that because I accepted it and I began to work on it, my children, I could see differences in them too. Um,
Yeah.
there were times that, you know, last week, as a matter of fact, Gianna was going over her school list, her supply list. I said, listen, go to Amazon. Anything that we don't already have in the office, put on the list, put it in the basket. I'll check it. We'll go ahead and order it. She came to the office. One of the things that was on the list was a pack of colored pencils. Well, we had colored pencils here, brand new box, had never been opened. It had 20 in it, but her list called for 8. I said, well, Gianna, just take the 20. I said, it's fine. She said, Mommy, it says 8.
Hmm.
The old me would have said,
Right.
but she was correct.
Yeah.
And she did what I asked her to do. And she kept to what the list said. Now,
Uh-huh.
we've been in the game long enough to know that a student who displays that type of attention to detail has a
Hmm.
different level of understanding.
Right.
And that's what I want to encourage. And for our teachers, sometimes we're so stressed, we're in the classroom. If a student does us like that, we say,
Hmm.
what did I tell you to do? You do what I told you to do, and then you have a seat. But really, what we should say is, you're right.
Yeah,
That
you're
is
right.
what it said, and that's what you need to do. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
it's that understanding. It's the fact that a lot of times we just kind of want to maintain control and we want students to respond to us the way we want them to respond. But that's not fair. She didn't say anything wrong. She didn't curse me out. She didn't say it disrespectfully. She corrected me and she was right. And that's part of what's in me. We got to
Yes.
let go of that
Yes.
type of control. Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump in a little bit deeper into the book. And so I want to go to the intro. After you tell people, hey, this book is not for the weak.
Hmm.
This is one thing that you say. You say, nevertheless, people, nonconformists, if embraced and respectfully guided, are change agents. We're problem solvers. We're climate and culture specialists. We're capable of fear, but our fierce overcoming personality creates opportunities to push against the status quo. We're the perfect wild card, but
Yeah.
only if you know how to strategize.
Hmm.
So, when I was working on the book, I was also, when we get closer to testing, I actually start working with kids instead of teachers. And
Hmm.
I was trying to remember in the back of my head, we're working with those kids. Okay, what did Doc say?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like this book is giving you strategies, but also it's for mindset.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to have a shift in your mindset. Sometimes you want to say, hey, oh, sit down.
Yeah.
Shut up. Why
Yes.
are you standing up? Why are you doing this? What did
Mhm.
I tell you? But when you start looking at them and seeing what they have in them that's so great, and you want to actually nurture it, and you choose an alternate response from what is your norm, I was looking at those kids like that because I work with the top kids because
Yeah.
it's hard to grow top
It
kids.
is. It is.
And so you got to have somebody that can really pull them.
Yeah.
And I was looking at them because they were all off the wall at the end of the day. Baby, you about to go home while you got so much energy. And I stopped. Hey, if you want to stand up, but you still adding to the discussion, stand up.
Yes.
So how do you get everybody, because everybody's not gonna be me,
Right.
see
Yeah.
that these kids are change
Yeah.
agents.
Yeah. This, the concept is one that shows us how much we all simply appreciate options.
Hmm.
When people have options, they're less likely to be as defiant or to push against in a negative way. When you tell somebody this is the only way that you can do it, no other way can you explain yourself, you put them in a cage. And some of us don't like to be caged. If all I've got to do is show you that I understand the concepts, why the hell I just got to do it the way you want me to do it?
Yeah,
That's really what it is.
yeah,
Now, what you can do is, as an educator, say, I'll give you the pick of these two options, or I'll give you three. As long as you do one of these three and you meet the target and you meet the standard and you do what I need you to do, we're fine. Because, see,
yeah.
in our exceptional education world, we call that accommodations.
Hmm.
We understand that you got to be able to show this, you got to stay on the standard. But according to, tests, it says that you're only able to give us about 75% satisfactory in that. The other 25% is mine. I'm gonna
Hmm.
find a way to get you to that 100%. And listen, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. And I know you can tell I've probably done some of everything to help a kid learn. That's my
Yeah,
responsibility. If I've
yeah,
committed myself to that, then whatever that 25% is to get him where he needs to go, I've got to deliver to him. And
yeah,
so, if you're really committed to your craft, you'll find a way.
yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
on the one thing that I say, even in professional developments, is one of my favorite movies is Friday. Because
Uh-huh.
Pokey Mama said, make it enough. That's what we're called to
Yeah,
do, is to make it enough. And for those students, especially those higher level thinkers, which fall on a spectrum that challenges our students who have deficits as well, you've got to be a pattern disruptor. That's what that is. Whatever
yeah,
it is that they were used to up until that point, you got to break it, because that's the only other way that you're going to push them to the level that they've got to go. And one thing that you can do is to ask them, how can we get you there?
yeah,
If
yeah,
somebody were to ask me how I could contribute to my learning in the classroom, what?
yeah,
And that's what you want to do to empower a student. We talk about, things like self-regulation and self-advocacy all the time. Well, how can you self-advocate if you don't know who you are? I got to be able to say, sometimes, Dr. Sutter,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to write my answers out. I like to act them out. You
Mm-hmm.
can listen for words in what I say to determine whether I've met that standard. Do you
Right.
agree as an educator?
Yeah.
So
Yes,
why can't
absolutely.
I provide that option? And what
Right.
that does is it cuts down on behavioral issues because you've given me the option of expressing myself in a different way. Now, the
Yes.
problem is that for teachers, they don't always have that flexibility because their administrators don't have. If
Mm-hmm.
your administrator doesn't have that eye, they won't open up the door for you to do that. And if your superintendent won't allow the administrator to do that, then you really can't. So I'm starting at the top. I got to start at the top. I
Yeah.
have to start at the top to remind the superintendents what it was for them to be a student.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to forget. And
That's
who wants to sit still for longer than 10 to 11 minutes?
Ooh, yeah. No one, because I can remember sitting in staff development like this could have been an email.
Okay?
Yeah.
Exactly. And y'all ain't got no donut.
Right. Okay, so I want to talk about one of your strategies that you share in chapter two,
Hmm.
strategies for playing the wild card. You talk about the color change. In the book, you say adjust your approach to match the person or group you are working with. Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences theory highlights the diverse ways individuals process information. For while learners focus on their specific strengths, which could be visual, spatial, linguistics, logical, mathematical. So, my question is, at the beginning of the school year, we would give like this learning interest
Inventory. Yeah.
inventory. Yeah. So, how is this different from doing something like that?
When I in the previous comment, I was saying, it's one thing to tell somebody who they are.
Mm-hmm.
They tell us all the time, and they don't mean any harm. Um,
Right.
but they'll throw those adjectives on us, and man, you are inspiring, and you are these things. But none of those things matter if I don't think that I am those things. They're nice to hear. Um, they're powerful because if you speak it enough, the same way you speak those things, people will, you'll kind of, oh, wait a minute, maybe I am inspiring. But the truth is, people are given those titles all the time and they go home and they cry themselves to sleep and they deal with depression and they can't
Mm,
believe those things about themselves. There,
yeah.
at a certain point, has to be a time where a person, regardless of age, is able to say who they are.
Yeah.
Because if you can't say who you are, you can't ask others how to best treat you. And so that is one thing that even, how Howard Gardner's concept talks about too is identifying exactly who you are so that you can help people treat you like you need to be treated. Because I can't fault you if I don't tell you what best suits me. I don't like micromanagement. I'll never like micromanagement.
Yes.
But
Right.
that's because I know how dedicated I am to my craft. When I get a job, you're not going to have to tell me to do it. It's innate. I am a hard worker. I've always been like that. But listen, the person who hires me won't necessarily know that right away. They'll
Right. That's
kind of have an
right.
idea. But the best way that I can help them treat me properly is
Hmm.
to show them and to speak my expectations. And students need to be able to be taught that as well. So the quicker we can use those inventories instead of telling them who they are, allowing them to tell us who they want to be and who they are, then we change again the pattern of expectations. Those things that we used to take those inventories would tell me that I needed to go into law enforcement. I guess because I'm hard.
Oh, wow.
That's not
Right.
I'm obviously an educator. I'm an educator.
Yeah.
Now, if
Yeah,
I'm
you
doing
are.
law enforcement, I must be teaching somebody how to be in law enforcement. But we rely too heavily on assessments and inventories to tell them who they are without them telling us who they are first. And that's just kind of the way I've chosen to lead in these last 15 years, especially. I haven't always been that type of educator. I haven't always been that type of mother. But that's what self work will do for you is as you grow, your perception changes and you begin
Yes.
to look at life realizing I'm spending too much time looking at other people when I should be looking at myself. By the time you start looking at yourself, you don't even have time to critique
Yeah,
anybody else. All I
that's
know is I want to be most effective in whatever way it is so that I can make sure my kids ain't got to be on somebody's couch laying down, talking it out when they get grown. Or
yeah,
the impact that I made on a child while at a school is one of those impacts that makes them want to go and impact other people in the right way.
yes,
How everybody should be thinking. I just feel like I'm gonna run for president in about two
yes, and you should.
in about 2 more years. Even though I don't know, I may not have made higher than a 90 in social studies. I might need to leave that alone.
Okay, so I want to go to chapter 5.
Okay.
Chapter 5, you say wild learners, those who challenge norms, question authority, and resist rigid instruction,
Mhm.
often struggle in traditional academic settings. But humor lowers defenses, builds trust, and makes learning feel less like a battle and more like an adventure. So, for some teachers, based on their personality,
Mhm.
that's no, but for other teachers, especially teachers who humor may not be their personality,
Yeah.
and they are in a state tested subject area,
Yeah.
how do you get those teachers who have students, those wild learners who struggle in a traditional academic setting, to shift to say, hey, I can create some type of wiggle room,
Yeah.
although I am preparing them for a state test.
That is a oh man, that's a very, very good question. And that's a question that I would intend to have with a group of administrators because remember I said, you know,
Yeah,
these questions it's when you got a teacher that fits into that capacity, and I we all know teachers that do. Those of us who have
right.
been administrators will very quickly say the English teachers act nothing like the math teachers act nothing like the history teachers act nothing like the science teachers. There's always a different vibe, especially with those halls. It's the math hall, it's the science hall. It's
Uh-huh.
very easy for these cultures to exist even within a culture. And for
Yeah.
people who are control freaks, that makes them very nervous. But
Mhm.
multicultural opportunities are our opportunity to again explain why there are multiple ways to get to a standard. The English, everybody is functioning, especially in a state tested area, under the same amount of pressure, yet they find a way to make it work. And it's for the administrator to understand that they have to have a little bit of flexibility to deliver that content in the way that needs to be delivered according to how their mind thinks, because
Mhm.
the English teacher is going to deliver content a different way than the biology state tested teacher. It's similar, yet it's still different because the vibes
Yeah.
are different. And so, as an administrator, my eyes look different in the science room than it does in the math room than it does in the English room. My background is science. I'm going
Hmm.
to tell you that there are certain concepts about ELA and math I don't get. I'm not trained in those areas, but I
Yeah.
know good instruction. That I do. I can
Right.
walk in a room and hear it completely quiet and see students independently working and doing what they need to do, and walk in a completely different room and see them moving and shaking, and one kid jumping and typing on the thing, and the other one on the floor with his feet kicked up and is still learning, and there's still learning taking place. And
Yeah.
the administrator has to be sensitive about that. The delivery and feedback, there has to be a sensitivity about that for a teacher who's not necessarily one who has a lot of humor or has dry humor. I've had to learn over a period of
Yeah.
time how to adjust to be able to communicate the way people need to hear.
Mhm.
Sometimes I want to hear a movie narrated by Tom Hanks.
Okay.
Sometimes I want to hear a movie narrated by Samuel L. Jackson.
Hmm.
It's a different movie. I'm in
Yeah.
a different zone. You know what I'm saying? People tease all the time. You know, I sent you a text at 8 o'clock last night, but it's 7 o'clock the next morning. I was a different person last night.
Yeah.
You got to
Right.
be able to adjust. People are different, and I have to understand that if I really dedicate myself to being effective, I can communicate with that teacher who is not known to work in that in that vibe. I've got to find a way because I'm just that committed to being effective. I got to find a way as the administrator to get through to her so she can get through to her kids.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so it was a saying going around a couple of years ago in the African American community that said, "Who this for?"
Okay.
So, who is the target
Yeah.
readers for this book? Who needs it?
I think that it's gonna be easy for educators to kind of scoop it
Hmm.
up, of course.
Yeah.
Once the educators read it, they'll be able to speak to parents and say, "This is it. This is you can listen. I'm telling you that there's some stuff in here that y'all can do at home because we fuss about that all the time. We can't do all the work at school in those 8 hours.
Right.
I need you to come through at home. Here are some things that you can do to kind of facilitate that." And so, on top of that, I just mentioned administrators because we
Yeah.
have people that need to learn how to interact with teachers who are nonconformists. And
Hmm.
so it really the book is for everybody, but the magic of it is the educators are who I think are going to be the ones to push this for me to say y'all need to get this, get it, get it, get it, because
Yeah.
educators understand that more often than not we have non-conforming more than we'll have conforming. Kids come from lots of different places. We've got, ever since COVID, we've been dealing with just transient students that move from place to place to place that don't have a chance to really get their feet rooted, and they can't control that. That's on the parent a lot of times. And so they come in, it's difficult. I mean, imagine how many listen, my K-12 experience was full of making friends.
Hmm.
The first time I realized that boys like girls, these are big moments. The first time that we were
Right.
all waiting in high school to see if we were going to get asked to prom, these are moments that stay with us forever. And
Yeah.
we as educators are blessed to be able to help navigate those times.
Right.
But we have
Yeah.
to understand that we didn't have good sense at that age either. And
Hmm.
more often than not, we were surrounded by adults who told us to just sit down and be quiet. And
Yeah.
so we became these adults who were afraid to use our voice. And no
Hmm.
more. Uh-uh.
No,
No.
that's what I was thinking when you were talking. I was like, on top of being, nonconformist, we dealing with a generation
Yes.
that, was not raised the way we were.
No.
And they don't see things are different and they don't value all the things that
They
we do.
really don't. They don't. Mm.
So you have to come at them differently.
You do. And I mean, if you really want to make a difference, now, if you want to sit somewhere and complain and be miserable for the rest of your, educating life, then okay. Or what you can do is get smart. Figure
Yeah.
out a way for us to all. And some of the best, one of the best pieces of advice my father ever gave me was understanding that life is full of phases. Phases
Mhm.
have a beginning and an end, and so you realize that we're stressed out a lot of times over something that eventually is going to come to an end. It's going to
Right.
end.
Right.
It's going to be okay. And our kids don't understand that. That's why they're so, anxiety is at an all time high. They don't understand that you feel like this right now, but give it a few days. You're going to be right back and it's going to be okay. And we need to be able to tell them that. And we ain't doing
Right.
a good job. We're not doing a
Yeah.
good job of it at all.
Yeah. Okay, so you released this book on June 3rd.
Uh
So
huh.
it's been almost a month, and
Yeah.
I know you have received so much feedback from people telling you about this book. What feedback has stuck with you the most?
The educators thought that they were going to figure out how to deal with bad kids, but they
Uh-huh.
realized that it was them.
Yes.
That's what I love. That's what I
Yeah.
love. And what I love about it is the fact that they can receive it from me because I'm always criticizing myself. I'm always trying to grow. I publicly do that. It's easier to accept feedback from somebody who's like, listen, I'm no better than anybody else. I'm not.
Hmm.
I've got my own set of challenges. I've got things about me that people cannot stand. And
Hmm.
there are people who see me for who I am and still feel like I'm too much. And if I
Oh,
allow it to, I'll begin to believe it. But I'm not,
oh, right.
I'm not. And you got to find your people. You got to find those who support you, and those who have gotten the book apparently are my tribe.
Yes.
Because they say, this is me. I can see myself in it. Even as a student, a lady told me a couple of weeks ago that she remembers the point of time in her life where she was that, but made herself conform and become somebody else because that's what was expected of her. And she wasn't able to shed that again until she got into adulthood. And then she realized how much of her life she had kind of answered to somebody else's expectation. And that's
Yes.
what makes us, feel so heavy by the time we enter into adulthood because we've got all these responsibilities anyway, and we've got to do all this stuff. And I said, shoot, if I got to do all this, I'm finna at least be able to be myself while I'm doing
Right. Oh,
it.
absolutely.
At least. So,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Uh,
I love to hear that they feel a little bit more free and they understand themselves a little bit better.
and so I'm going to say that the work with this book hadn't even really started yet, you
I
know,
believe. Mm-hmm.
because there's so much that people are
Yeah.
going to get. And I know that it's going to be a rewarding experience once it has the great impact that I see it having. What would you say to people who may be educators or professionals or, people who they have something that can help others, but they may feel like writing a book may be a little bit intimidating?
Yeah.
What advice do you have for people?
Now this is solely my perception, and this is just where I am right now.
Uh-huh.
But I'm really convinced that in this whole humanity thing, each of us are called to serve out whatever our responsibility is, various responsibilities as we're here. When you neglect to share your magic, it's
Mhm.
selfish to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you allow fear to get the best of you and you don't move, even though it's justified that you feel that fear, when you
Mhm.
don't continue to move, I think it's selfish.
Yeah.
I just spoke to a young lady when we were working out when we got through, and she was just kind of venting about some stuff and kind of saying the same thing, and people they look at me and they say, man, I just wish I could do that like you. And I
Yeah.
was saying to them that you really can. It literally
Can.
is the step of doing it, and then every step after that point gets easier to take. But she's got a magic in her. And I told her, I said, can you remember every time that you needed somebody just like you to come to you to say, it's going to be okay, you all right, do these things, it's going to feel a little rough for a minute. When you neglect to share that with folks who need you,
Mm-hmm.
are you really leaving the legacy that you say that you're leaving for yourself? You're not. And
Yeah.
so, again, that's my perception. But I feel this very strong conviction to every time God tells me to do something, do it.
Right.
And my desire to be obedient far outweighs my desire to be liked.
Yes.
It
Yes.
really does. It far outweighs it. So much so that even if you don't like me and I know you don't like me and we didn't got into it, I'm probably gonna forget about it. Then I'm gonna see
Uh-huh.
you out somewhere and I'll be like, hey girl, and you're gonna be like, we don't like each other. I'm gonna be like, man, I forgot because my
Right.
focus is on my own self-healing. I
Yeah.
forgot that we got beef. And when
Yeah.
you start focusing on yourself and encouraging other people to do the same thing, they invest differently. They walk differently, and you create a tribe that is contagious and people want to, what is it? What's going on? And you all of a sudden realize that those who are generally disliked and pushed to the side are those that are necessary to get to the next level. And that's what being wild is. That's what.
Yeah. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so um outside of education, tell us a fun fact about you.
A fun fact about me. I love to dance, baby.
Yes.
Gigi gets so embarrassed because I am the we have this thing that we do that we've done since she's really little. If we're at a place, a grocery store, a store of any kind, and we are the only two on an aisle. We dance to whatever
Okay.
song. And we've done that since she's been little, and now she's a tween, so she's embarrassed, but I don't care because we're gonna come back to that. And I know that when she reaches a certain age, she's gonna think back on that, and that is gonna be magic that she'll be able to share, with her child or whoever it is too. That magic that I feel that we all kind of possess in our own way is what I'm committed to kind of bringing out of everybody I meet. And
Uh-huh.
I feel like I'm good at it. They don't
Yeah.
really know what it is. They just say, "Man, you know how to leave somebody inspired when you leave." But I think that's my thing. That's my thing to do. And so
Yeah.
anything that allows me to do that is something that I really like to do. So I've changed the way that I see parenting, and I try to have a good time with my children at this
Yeah.
point. I done fussed enough. I still got some frustration, and I
Yeah.
look at my marriage differently as well. And instead of me thinking of all the things that we need to fix, I'm looking at things and grateful for the things that we've overcome and ways that
Yeah.
we can show our children that we push through. Same
Yeah.
thing with every relationship that is there. But that the fun fact about me is that I am literally addicted to being someone who exhorts. I want to do
Yeah.
that. I like that. I love doing that. And it gets strange to people who are not used to understanding that the same way people just have a natural inclination to know how to bake, some
Mm-hmm.
people have a natural inclination to know how to encourage and exhort. And I feel like
Yeah.
that's my life.
Yeah. I would agree with you.
Do you
Yeah.
agree with that? I do.
Whole-
I feel like that.
Wholeheartedly. Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. So is there anything that you would like to add?
I don't think so. I'm excited. I really am. I'm excited. I know that I'm excited because this is my thing, but I'm
Uh-huh.
put some humor back into education. It needs to be there. We're
Yeah.
stressed out enough as it is. Our kids come in excited. Kindergarten kids are still excited. And then somewhere along the way, by the time they get to sixth grade, by the time they get to middle school, the teachers look just like them. And
Uh-huh.
it's not as, exciting. And we got to bring it back. We got to
Yeah.
bring it back. We got kids at this point in third and fourth grade talking about they tired of going to school. Baby, you got a long way to go. And so I feel like because we've already had our experience there, it's time for the grown folks to show them that it can be, exciting and humorous again in there.
Yeah.
It'll be time where we'll have to work. But the truth is, those options that we're able to give make learning fun again because I don't feel stuck as a student.
Yeah. And I will say that although this book talks about nonconformists through the lens of education, you have nonconformists in
Everywhere. Yes.
everywhere in every field out there.
Yes.
So those strategies in dealing with nonconformists, like this book can really reach
Yeah.
in different places just because when you are working with human beings.
Yes. Anyway, that's right. Yeah.
Right.
And what I'm trying to say is that the student who was a nonconformist in K-12 now works for you in
Yeah.
wherever you work. So at the
Right.
grocery store, you ask them to stock like this. They don't want to. I don't want to do it like this. I want to do it like this. You know what I'm saying? And so,
Uh-huh.
listen, you have to do it like this right here. But on this aisle, I'll let you come up with whatever display you want to display.
Uh-huh. Right.
It's that quick. Now you got to meet me halfway. You got to do what you're supposed to do right here, because sometimes you just got to obey the law. You have
Uh-huh.
to. But I'm gonna give you some flexibility over here, so the next time I got to put some pressure on you to make you do something, you won't cut up
Right.
because you
Right.
understand that I'm not just trying to run you. I just listen. Come on, let's make this thing work together. So, yeah, that's what I'm really hoping comes out of it.
Yes, yes. Well, listen, I want everybody to go out and get a copy
Yes,
because
me
even
too.
if you feel like this book is not for you, it's somebody you know
That's
that you
right.
can give this book to. So please go out and purchase Where the Wild Things Learn.
Yes.
So, what is next for you with this book? Like what is
That's you asked the question before where you were like, you're right, you're asking about inspiration and stuff like that, and what I was thinking while I was writing and where the stuff came from. And the whole time I was writing, I just had other ideas for books. Um,
uh-huh.
and so I think the next thing that I really want to focus on is, I'm teaching why they ain't learning.
Yeah.
which will allow me again to get back into what things create barriers to learning. And a lot of times it's relational right there. I mean, automatically, I can't learn because I don't understand what you're saying. Even though I hear what you're saying, it's not kind of, it's not making it through. And if I've only been talking a certain way to Gianna, when somebody else uses a different language, she's not going to understand it unless I taught her a little bit of that
Right.
language. And so a lot of times teachers don't understand that that's what differentiation is, and that starts tier one. That's not,
Yeah.
we're not going to wait until a student has, an identified exceptionality. Tier one needs to be delivered differently.
Yeah.
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 So I think I want
Absolutely.
to, focus on that next after I done talked about these kids knocking all the stuff off the desk.
Yes. Okay, so where can the people find you? Where can they follow you? How can they book you to do a PD and all of that great stuff?
Well, there is a website that is drcandicevanceanderson.com that you can go, especially to pick up the book. There's a link for the book there. On all matters of social media, I'm pretty sure I am Dr. Candice Anderson, and I can be found there. I have recently started a TikTok. I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm gonna figure it out. I'm sure I'm gonna get my daughter to help me figure out what it is. So I'll be there too. But I am Dr. Candice Anderson on TikTok as well. LinkedIn, I can be found Dr. Candice Anderson.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. You have any direct emails or anything?
I have two email addresses that I'm using right now. The one is Candice M. Vance at gmail.com, and also Dr. Candice Anderson at gmail.com.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Candice Vance Anderson, for giving me a little bit of your time today and helping break down some of the components within your book. Guys, go out and get this book because it will definitely bless you. Dr. Anderson gives real life strategies of how you can implement and help students today. You don't have to wait. Like, this is a very easy read. So go out and get Where the Wild Things Learn so you can make an impact.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson, for joining me today. Um, I predict so many great things with this book. I do believe that you are going to sell a minimum of 5,000 copies this
Yes, I
year.
received it.
So receive all of that because you have work to do. And it's bigger than with the work that you have to do. And so your obedience is taking you right on the road you need to be on. And I am so grateful that you and I have crossed paths.
Yes,
Um, because I like to be aligned with
yeah,
people who have a similar mission and purpose in life.
me too. Me too. That was all God. All God.
Yes.
It was all God.